Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Katie and today we're doing a bit of a favourites video, but also April was a month, so we're also just going to have a bit of a chatty update as well. So I am going to talk about some of the books and decks and media in general that got me through the month of April, but I'm also just going to share with you some of the things that happened to me during the month and some clips of my life and behind the scenes that I want to share with you today. Some of it is quite sad, but I'm also just really happy to be back, and I hope you enjoy chilling out with me and spending a bit of time with me today in this video. Usually in these favourites videos we start with the books, so let's do that. I'm going to tell you about my 3 favourite books in April. The first is a book that I've actually done an entire reading vlog of over on my second channel, so I will leave a link to that in the description box below if you'd like to hear me talk about this book for literally 36 minutes. That is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in his Mistborn series, which is one of the most highly acclaimed and beloved modern fantasy series. Some of you might remember that Blair actually bought me the box set of the first trilogy for my birthday back in 2020, and I finally got around to starting it. I've always been pretty intimidated by big books and by fantasy, but with so much hype around Brandon Sanderson, and I have a lot of friends who really love him as well, I was just excited to finally get stuck in and to try it out. And although I definitely had some strong criticisms of this book, overall it was just really fun and I did really enjoy reading it. I've heard this described as Ocean's 11 cross My Fair Lady, and I think there are definitely elements and tropes that come into this book that do fit that description quite well. Basically, this takes place in a world where 1,000 years ago, the hero of ages who was supposed to save the world lost. And since then, the world has been ruled by a terrible evil man, the Lord Ruler. In that time, the Scar, a race of people I suppose, have been really severely oppressed. They are slaves. The world is blighted by the mists at night and ashes rain down from the sky during the day. And overall, it's just not a very good time. Lots of oppression, lots of Dark Lordy type bad vibes. That is until Kelsier and his crew are hired by the Scar Rebellion to overthrow the Dark Lord and to take the city of Luthadel. A young street urchin named Vin sort of gets roped into their plan, and we find out pretty early on that both Vin and Kelsier are Mistborns. They are people who can ingest metals to produce magical powers. So this is a story about Vin and Kelsier and their crew starting a revolution to overthrow the bad guy. And although it's a 650-page book, I read it really quickly because it's very fast-paced and super fun. Sadly though, although this is one of my 3 favourite books of May, I have read book 2, The Well of Ascension, and it might be my least favourite book of the year. Maybe in even longer. I hated it. A vlog for that one will be up soon too. But this one can be read kind of as a standalone, and it was a good time. So here it is as one of my favourites of April. Immediately after that book, I actually read Catching Telecrow by Ambelin and Ezekiel Kwaymullina. This is a book I've been meaning to read for a while, and I adored it. This is an Australian young adult novel written by 2 Indigenous authors, and it's basically a murder mystery ghost story, but it is absolutely moving and impactful and explores the complexities and the generational trauma of colonization in Australia. Beth Teller is a teenage girl who has died in a car accident. Her father is a detective, he's a police officer, and he can still see her ghost. She's still hanging around because she's worried about him and she's not ready to leave him. He gets sent off to sort of help investigate a death that has occurred in another small town. He's sort of been assigned this because they think it's going to be pretty cushy and they know that he's having a hard time. But it ends up unraveling so much history and complexity and trauma from colonization and intergenerational trauma and abuse of the Indigenous peoples of the area. It's told partly from Beth's perspective and then also in verse, and these verses are the most beautiful, heart-wrenching, metaphorical storytelling around trauma and abuse that just interweave itself into the narrative so well. I don't want to say too much, but like this is a very quick read. I read it in less than a day. It's beautiful, it's heartbreaking, it's important, and it's so engaging. This is a book that is definitely appropriate for young adult audiences, but it's absolutely one that I think adults will love and enjoy as well. If you can, I highly, highly recommend reading this one. It's gorgeous. Another Australian YA book that I read this month that I really loved and had a lot of fun with is Social Cue by Kerr. This one I actually included in the vlog that I did, the reading vlog that I did while I was in Batemans Bay, which is also on my second channel, linked below. This is basically a story of an autistic girl named Zoe who's just finished school and she's managed to get an internship at like this media company website where she gets to write articles for them. She's also just beginning to explore the world of online dating, so she decides to write about her experience being a woman, being an autistic person, diving into the world of online dating with not much history with love and romance. It goes a little bit viral and several people end up commenting that they actually know Zoe and that they have at one point in time had crushes on her and she just missed the signs. So the editor sort of encourages her to reach out to these people, to meet up with them, maybe go on some dates and just explore what these signs were and what she missed. And so she creates a series of articles out of this experience. And it's just really incredible watching Zoe go through this journey of learning more about herself and what she wants and her boundaries, her needs. It definitely has some light, fun, even comedic elements, but it also has quite a lot of heart and touches pretty explicitly on some of the more challenging elements of Zoe's experience. She does witness abuse of power by police against an autistic person, and that really shakes her up and does affect her. But an amazing thing is that she manages to really influence the way that this incident is reported and gives a voice to the man who suffered this abuse. So it explores many elements of Zoe's lived experience and just how autism is perceived by people, even well-meaning people. Zoe's just an incredible, very warm, engaging narrator, and I loved her and I loved this book. Now for the decks that I spent time with in April. If you watched my video about which decks I was planning to take with me on my trip to Batemans Bay, you will know which Oracle deck is coming up. It is the one and only, my favorite of all time, the Saltwater reading cards. I mentioned in that video that my last trip to Batemans Bay was really difficult, and I had a pretty strong feeling that this one was going to be difficult too. Difficult in a different way, but still really difficult, and I was correct about that. And so having this deck with me, a deck that I just can rely on, that I trust to support me, but push me to just give me the messages that I need to make it through each and every day, even when life is really tough. There's just no words for having a companion like that when you need it most. I didn't use this deck every day. I probably pulled 2 or 3 cards a week, and I just felt like that was exactly what I needed. Honestly, I felt like this deck helped me keep my head above water, which I know it's a saltwater reading cards. That feels a little on the nose for a metaphor, but really that's what this deck did for me. Now the next Oracle deck I don't actually have here to show you, but it's an Oracle deck by Tosha Silver that I bought for my mum for her birthday a few years ago. She has read some of Tosha Silver's books and she really likes them. So when I saw this Oracle deck, I bought it for her as a gift. And she brought it along to Batemans Bay. And so throughout our trip, Mum would very often draw all of us cards for each day. Even when we were driving up to Batemans Bay, Mum was pulling out cards for us in the car, you know, just sort of setting the scene of what we can sort of expect or how we can set our intentions for the trip. And then throughout the trip, if we were together, Mum might pull us a card, or if we couldn't get together that day, Mum would send us a message with a photo of our card. And this deck definitely has a very different vibe from the Saltwater reading cards. I got a very different sort of experience from using or, you know, working with that deck over the period, but it was just quite tender and sweet and uplifting and affirming. So it was a nice complementary to the Saltwater reading cards, I'd say. And of course, just a really nice experience to have with my family of sort of like checking in with each other, pulling these cards, sort of joking around with each other when one person would get the same card 4 days in a row, all of that sort of stuff. And especially after Blair and I got COVID, because yes, we survived 2.5 years of a pandemic in Australia's COVID capital just to go away to regional New South Wales to catch it at a wedding. And so we had to isolate from our family for almost 2 weeks by the end of it. And so Mum sort of checking in by sending these cards to us every day was just, it really got me through and helped me feel still connected to my family while we weren't able to spend any time with them. Then the deck that I have not really been reading with, but have pulled one card out of since I got home, that is the Oriens Tarot. Now this is a deck that I have spent quite a bit of time with lately. I did a whole tarot and practice episode with this deck, which you can check out in the cards above. If you'd like to see me sort of working with this deck over a period of time, doing readings and giving you examples of my interpretations. And the reason I decided to pull this deck out again when I got home is primarily because of the reason that I initially bought this deck, and that is because of the 9 of Cups. The 9 of Cups in this deck is a beautiful black standard poodle. And for those of you who've been around and watched some of my vlogs or used to follow me on Instagram before I deleted my Instagram, you will know that my parents have had a beautiful, beautiful black standard poodle named Henry for the last 12 or 13 years. Although Blair and I ended up staying in the Bay a little bit longer because we were under isolation and I wanted to be able to spend some time with my grandfather because he's not well, my parents ended up coming home back to Melbourne about a week before we did. And when they got home, it was very evident that Henry wasn't well. He has been getting older and skinnier over the last year or so, but he was still happy. And when mum and dad got home, he wasn't anymore. So they had to make the really hard decision to put our beautiful baby boy down. And Henry, he was just such a special dog. I know everybody says that about their dogs, but Henry, he really got me through one of like my lowest period with my bipolar and my depression. I know I've said this before, but I would regularly stay at mum and dad's when I was particularly suicidal or just really not doing well. I would stay at their place and Henry would just not leave my side. He was quite a confident, outgoing sort of dog, but when I wasn't doing well, he knew, and he was always so gentle and tender with me. And for those of you who have experienced some kind of depression or whatever, I know it's very common, and I had this experience where it was just so hard to accept love from people. I felt like such a burden. I felt so much shame that it's almost like it was hard to believe that the people around me really did love me. I felt so unlovable that it was hard to accept love. But with Henry, I just never felt that way. When I was with Henry, I knew that he was never going to leave me, that he loved me. And although he was sad that I was sad, there was no judgment in it. He just held space for me to be sad when I was sad. And then when I was feeling a little bit better, he would get a bit more playful, and it was almost like he was encouraging me to come back out of my own mind and to start interacting with the world again. And I used to walk them nearly every day. When I wasn't able to work, that was like the one thing that got me out of the house. Even if it was just going to walk the dogs down the street, or sometimes we'd go for hours. Walking Henry and Heidi was a big part of me recovering. I often say that like the three biggest things that saved me were my family, my meds, and my dogs. And so although I know that Henry had 12, almost 13 really, really good years with us, obviously it's really sad. And I didn't get to say goodbye, and that does hurt. But I also know, like, I trust mum and dad that they did the right thing. And I'm glad he's not suffering, and I miss him. So I've been watching lots of like the little videos and going through the photos that we've taken over the years. And I've also just had this card out on my table to remind me of my really, really special friend. And now that my nose is all red, how about I show you a couple of my favorite clips of Henry, just so that I have them here on the channel, and just so, I don't know, for those of you, because I know there are some of you who just really loved seeing him, you can say a little goodbye to him too.
Hi! Hey, you can do it. Hey, baby. Hello. Oh, it's good to see you both. Hello. Oh, hello. Hello. Oh, there's your toy, Henry. Hello. Come on. Heidi. Hi. Henry, what you doing? Henry. Henry. Hello. Henry. Henry, come here.
I think we're treading on thin ice.
Henry. How you doing?
Do you want to come hop out? Come on. He just doesn't want to.
He likes it too much.
What you got? You got the toy. Got the toy. Hey? He's got the toy. Good boy. Good boy.
And now for the other bits and pieces that I wanted to share with you. This is mostly going to be just bits and pieces from my trip away. So as I mentioned before I left, we were basically going to Bowen for my cousin's wedding. And although I think this is where I caught COVID, I did have a lovely time at the wedding. My favorite, absolute favorite part, apart from like the ceremony and seeing my cousin very happily married to his beautiful wife now, my personal favorite moment was at 11 o'clock when everyone was getting a bit tired. I felt like dancing. So I got up and I was dancing by myself, and my dad came up and danced with me. And we just had the best time, just spinning around in circles, being silly, laughing my ass off, nearly tripping over because I was tired and I was wearing, high heels for me. And it was just one of those moments that I know I'm never going to forget. And I had no idea that Blair was sitting back filming it. And it just makes me so happy to watch. I've watched this clip on repeat so many times because it's just one of those joyous moments in my life that I know will stay with me forever. After the wedding, we headed to Batemans Bay to spend some time with my grandparents. On the first day there, we got the news that my grandfather's chemo is not working anymore and that it's time for him to transition to palliative care and that this is the time for him to spend with his family and with his loved ones. The next day, I tested positive for COVID, so there was no spending time with my grandfather. I was in isolation. And obviously this was pretty hard to cop. Like I've been scared of COVID anyway. I have asthma. I know what it feels like to not be able to breathe. And I know the impact that COVID can have on lungs. So that's one of the reasons I have been so careful not to get COVID. Catching it finally, I was scared and I still am not very well. It's more than nearly 3 weeks since I had it and I still have a chest infection. I'm still on steroids. I'm still having a hard time breathing. But more than that, I was just so frustrated that we'd come all this way to see my grandfather, who I might not get a whole lot more time with. And now COVID's taking this time away from me. So Blair and I made the decision quite early on that we were going to stay in Batemans Bay for an extra week. We were sort of hoping that Blair either would stay negative or would test positive quite quickly, and then after 7 or 8 days we'd be fine, we'd recover very quickly, and that we could spend the following week with Poppy. Unfortunately, as things turned out, with my lingering symptoms and Blair not testing positive for almost until the end of my isolation, we only ended up getting 2 days with Poppy, which I do wish we had more time, but they were 2 really wonderful days. One of those days happened to be his 75th birthday. And so it was really special to be able to have that time with him and to make sure that he didn't have to spend it alone. We got him a cake from Woolies. His favorite cake is just that sponge cake with the cream and jam in the middle. Very simple, but he loves it with some ice cream. So we brought that over in the morning thinking that we might have it for like tea later in the day, but no, he got stuck in right away for morning tea. He humoured me by letting me sing him happy birthday, and we just had a really lovely couple of hours together.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Abby. Happy birthday to you. Hip hip hooray! Hip hooray! Hip hooray!
Okay.
Want to come over here? Want to come over here? No. No. There's the garbage man.
And my pop is someone who loves Batemans Bay. He loves where he lives. He loves the people. He loves the beautiful surrounds. And one of his favorite things to do before he got unwell was to take us to lookouts and to show us, you know, like these secret little places that he loved and adored. He's not really up to that anymore. So on his birthday afternoon, he encouraged us to go to his favorite lookout that he's never had a chance to show me. And so that's what we did. We went up to the lookout and just spent like an hour sitting up there, spending some time together, me and Blair, and taking lots of videos and photos to show Poppy the next day. So during those 2 days that we had with him, we just tried to spend as much time with him as he was up to spending with us. And then we would go around Batemans Bay and explore beautiful little spots that we maybe hadn't seen before and just enjoy them for him and take lots of pictures to show him when we got back. So between finding out about my grandfather, then Blair and I catching COVID, and then my dear old Henry dying, it's been a difficult few weeks. And I just wanted to share with you where I've been at while also sharing with you some of the really special, happy moments. Both with Henry and Poppy and with my family and in Batemans Bay in general. Thank you as always for being so supportive and understanding of when I'm maybe not as consistent with content as I would like to be. And although I am home, like I said, I'm still definitely recovering. I'm feeling pretty good right now because I was just on my nebulizer, but things are up and down at the moment and I'm not sure how much content I'll be making over the next few weeks or what I'll be doing, but I'm still around, I'm back home, and I'm just so grateful to have had the time that I did with Pop and with Henry. I did a whole reading vlog and sort of snapshots of my time in Batemans Bay on my second channel, which I will leave a link to in the description box if you'd like to see what I got up to. Mostly reading, but also some really beautiful shots as well. I do have a couple of like reading vlogs that I'm partway through, and they are a little bit more chill and easy to make. So I may be uploading more over on my second channel than I will be here for the next little while. I don't really know. I don't have any super big plans, but if you want to keep up with me and what I'm doing, I'll try to post from time to time on the community tab if I'm not posting videos here. Otherwise, definitely check out my second channel where I think I will be doing more just casual, lazy, cozy reading vlogs. Thank you to everybody who sent very kind, supporting well wishes, both for me and Blair and the COVID situation, but also just in general. I really do appreciate all of the support and love that we received. It meant a lot. And a really big thank you too to my wonderful, kind patrons over on Patreon who are always very understanding of me and very supportive of what I do here online. And especially big thank you goes to my high tier patrons, Livia, Lynette Brown, Laurie and Ian Yitzhak, but a big thank you to everybody. But I think that's enough for this favourites and update video. Thank you as always, and I hope you're all well. I will talk to you soon, whenever that may be. Until then, so much love. Bye.